Okay, so welcome to Hackstock 2017. If you don't know what's going on, just ask some people. There's lots of stuff going on. We don't know what's going on. But we do know what's going on in this corner of the room. This is Talkaoke. It's a pop-up talk show. Everyone's welcome to come and take a seat on the table of chat. So please do come and have a seat, especially if you don't know what's going on. Join the club. Hopefully we'll find out as the day progresses. So this is Talkaoke. Come and have a seat. It involves talking into this microphone about really whatever you want to talk about. It could be anything. And let's just get some names. Thanks for coming to sit down. There's a lot of cameras out already. Let's say more than 50% of the audience has got a camera. But you don't have to have a camera to come and sit down here. So let's get some names. My name's Mikey. What's your name?
Rick.
Rick, I'm just going to turn you up a little bit. What's your name?
Rick.
Rick.
Rowan.
Nina. Lucy.
Lucy, welcome. So, I mean, I think we're going to start off, I mean, it is the morning still, so we'll start off with the kind of this morning kind of relaxed, kind of daytime TV kind of feel, which I feel is appropriate for this time of day.
I don't really feel that relaxed watching this morning, though. It's always a bit, sort of makes me feel a bit tense watching it.
Yeah, but the presenters, they probably don't feel relaxed either, but they give off a kind of vibe that they are relaxed.
Trying.
Yeah.
They're trying to be relaxed, and
Yeah.
they're trying to convince everybody else that
Yeah.
they're relaxed.
Yeah.
But they've been up since 3:30. How on earth
Yeah.
are they relaxed?
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe the secret to giving off that feeling of being relaxed is to be incredibly tired instead. Anyway, let's not get too involved into what our projected headspace of those this morning TV presenters are, unless that's where we want to go. What do we want to talk about today?
Well, the thing that's really burning in my mind this morning is last night I watched another chunk of Adam Curtis's Hypernormalization.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't sleep very well last night.
Right.
Not because it didn't tell me anything I didn't already know, but because it was things that we've known for ages in activist circles and in politically aware circles. And if they had been made so clear by an institution like the BBC at the time, or 10 or 20, even 10 years ago, there would have been riots in the streets.
Okay.
Now, something that radical and clear, Kissinger set up the chain of paths that has led to ISIS.
Right.
Without too many spoilers, that's one of the arguments that the work lays out, right? It's like but nobody gives a shit because we're so burnt out by having all these. I'm talking generally as a species.
Yeah.
To actually be able to respond appropriately anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what kept me awake last night.
Right.
It's just like, holy shit, we keep having these revelations, but it takes too long for them to bubble up into the general consciousness.
So
how can we speed that up?
This is hypernormalization. Has everyone else seen hypernormalization? You haven't seen it?
No, I didn't see it.
Any responses? Do you feel the same as Lucy?
Yeah, kind of. It's the frustration comes from everyone's apathy, isn't it? It's just knowing that everyone kind of knows what's right, but we have powerless to do anything, so we just kind of give up.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that just, I think, probably pisses you off as much as it does me. You just kind of want to shake everyone, but you can't. And
yeah. Okay. So it's a kind of frustration in a way that you can explain how it is, but it still doesn't change anything. Nina, any thoughts on it?
Well, what I find really interesting is sort of the political changes that are taking place right now. For example, what's happening with the snap elections here in Britain, what's happening across Europe, and I was just talking about this, how Trump is rolling back everything that Obama's doing.
Yeah.
What I find quite depressing is sort of the idea of gender equality in that realm, how that's really being pushed back. And even though we do have women sort of coming to power, what they're saying, they're part of that old collective, that old mindset, and it's a very cyclical point of view. And at the same point, I'm thinking it might be good that we're so depressed about it, because it means that we're asking people to step forward and make a change.
Okay.
Because they're angry.
So we're angry, we're frustrated, we're depressed, but it's good. Okay, we've got a new face to the table. What's your name?
Hi, Steve.
Steve, we got Lucy, we got Nina, we got Rowan, we got Rick. My name's Mikey. Come and sit down, come and get involved. Have you got a view on this? Come and have a seat.
What was the question?
There wasn't actually a question. Have you seen Adam Curtis's documentary Hypernormalization?
Not yet.
Well, Rick hasn't seen it either. Steve, have you seen it?
I didn't even know it existed until you just said it a few seconds ago.
Okay. So 50% of the people around the table haven't seen it, but what it's about, it seems, is about a kind of knowing about all the political stuff that's going on, all of the bad things happening, but not being able to do anything about it. There's a frustration, there's a depression. Nina says, okay, we are frustrated and depressed, but that's good. It's good to be frustrated and depressed.
I agree. I think. Oh.
Come on, sit down. Come on.
Oh. 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I agree with what Nina said. I think we've seen this with the Women's March. Like things like this, more people, more young people especially, are starting to look at politics, look at the world, and look at how it's affecting them, and starting to get more involved. And I think that's the only positive thing that's come out of Trump and Brexit and all these kind of things.
Okay, you're itching to jump in, but hang on a sec, we've got a new face. We're just going to get your name. So we've got Steve. Well, we didn't get your name.
Carisha.
Was it?
Carisha.
Carisha. Steve, Carisha, Lucy, Nina.
Selim.
Selim.
S-E-L-I-M.
Selim, Rowan, Rick, I'm Mikey. You wanted to jump in?
Yeah. In some ways, I think what we're talking about is the whole point of that piece of hypernormalization. It's just like, what have we become accustomed to that we haven't noticed ourselves becoming accustomed to?
Right.
And his argument is that that half of the conspiracy theories are actually true, but I think there's something in there for people like myself and maybe other people around here who've been involved in, I don't know, technology for social change, activism, that kind of thing. We tend to think that knowledge is power, and that actually all we have to do is inform people. And I think what hit me last night is that, no, maybe actually we are just waiting for the stupid people to die out, but there's the risk that they might not. Okay. So if just informing people isn't enough, what the fuck do we do?
Okay. Steve?
Sorry, I was going to say, as now that the mic's in my hands, a note on stupid people. Don't suppose any of you guys have seen the film Idiocracy? Yes. The basic principle of Idiocracy is that the intelligent people are not breeding, not reproducing, because we think it's not the right time to have a baby, because of the market, because of the stocks, because of the world crisis situation, the whole depression. We are intelligent, we are smart, so we're not going to have a child, bring a child in this world, whilst all the idiots are saying, fuck that, let's fuck like mad. And they get on with everyone left, right and centre and breeding.
Is there a kind of, let's call it a Darwinian sort of impetus towards stupidity?
I have seen the film, but it is kind of ironic given we are products of our environment, and that's not necessarily got anything to do with genetics. Which I did find the film funny, but also it was a bit reductionist, wasn't it? I mean, some of the smartest people on earth have come from some of the less privileged backgrounds and vice versa. Just look at the Hilton family, for example, or children of great people who have just ended up being Z-list celebrities, and then absolute geniuses who have come from completely impoverished backgrounds. I like to think that although what the premise of the film is kind of starts off being true, but I think the outcome might be quite different. Okay.
All right. I mean, let's spread this out. What do people think? Is there an army? A nation of stupid people? Do they actually exist? Are they created because the clever people are not breeding? I'll come to you in a second. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, the whole idea of stupid people. I don't think that people in general are stupid. I do think they have to be informed and educated.
Yeah.
The future really does lie, I think, in educating, and internet and e-learning and Wikipedia. All of that stuff is really good in helping inform people. And then, I mean, the whole idea of sort of controlling population as well. Look at the one-child policy in sort of China and what it's done there.
Yeah. What has it done?
How in India or in China they kill and murder, baby girls before they're even born because they know that it's a woman.
Right.
And that men get more money out of the family and they bring back more money. So I'm not sure if maybe the future is sort of how the Scandinavians do it, and they're kind of got there's a sort of a line that you can get to a balance between nature and humankind.
There's possibly a balance here. I mean, you're saying, Lucy, that it's not just about informing people, but that you've got the information, but that's not enough. Come and join it. Come and have a seat. You had the point very quickly.
Just a quick point to prove idiocracy is the thing that's happening out of. I know you were saying about intelligence and things getting available for everyone, but if that is really improving humanity, if that is really the way forward, who's the president of America?
Okay, so you're saying Trump shows that people are becoming more stupid. Are people becoming more stupid? That's the question. We got a new face to the table. Let's just quickly get your name.
My name's Marlon.
Marlon, we got Rick, we got Rowan, we got Selim, we got Nina, Lucy, Carisha, and Steve. I'm Mikey. What are you going to say, Lucy?
I think we have to draw a distinction between uneducated, lower mental capacity, which actually can be partly genetic, but also to do with birth circumstances, nutrition, all that kind of stuff, and willful flipping ignorance.
Yeah.
And what Trump displays is willful ignorance.
Yeah.
And I had an email exchange with a writer yesterday who wrote that Trump has the disability of not wanting to know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And I went, no, I'm not going to accept that argument.
Yeah.
Because A, he's the president and he has the duty to be informed and make informed decisions. But also, he can access as many resources and briefings and that as he likes, but he's chosen to surround himself with people who don't want to know what's going on in the world.
Right.
That's not the same.
It's a willful, it's a deliberate kind of blinkering.
Yeah. At the same time, I can see traits in him of myself and my friends who also have assorted, what are called learning disabilities, but, just stuff.
Yeah.
And I can see some of those in him, right? So I have to have that little bit of empathy.
Right.
But it runs out very, very quickly.
Okay.
Because being scared of the truth is not the same as shedding responsibility and trying to create a bubble to protect your own reality.
Okay. So this is so welcome to Talkaoke. We're here at the VR festival, but we're talking about IRL in real life at the moment. But there's some questions going on. Are we becoming more stupid? What is stupid? What is this willful ignorance that Trump seems to be showing? What is it about? Is it about a lack of curiosity? Is it about lack of education? Is it about a kind of weighting of stupid people breeding more? Can we get to a balance? That's what Nina says. Any comments from those that haven't said anything yet? No?
Sorry, just one thing that's been on my mind a lot recently about this kind of issue is how the value of evidence doesn't seem to count for much anymore. I get into a lot of sort of heated discussions with people on into like alternative medicines and things like that. And these, these are educated sort of middle-class people who really believe that kind of water, like homeopathy, works and stuff like that. And it's just there is no way of using evidence in arguments against this because
what happens?
Well, they just say, it works for me. It's how I feel. And it's like I don't disagree that it might be doing something psychologically. It's like a placebo kind of effect, but people will think that it's really doing something. A family friend of ours recently went to Guyana and took homeopathic malaria medicine.
Yeah.
Fortunately, nothing happened, but she's convinced that it protected her.
Right.
And her family and friends were trying to explain that basically you very nearly killed yourself.
Okay. Okay, so we don't listen to evidence. I guess you're saying from a scientific perspective, people are not willing to listen to evidence. I mean, is that a kind of ignorance? Is it a kind of willful ignorance?
I'm trying not to speak too much, but I was like, but I think the thing is, there's sort of personal denial of truth and wanting to avoid the truth because, to a certain point, our culture has grown up to protect us from a whole lot of truths. And then there's the cultural constructs around us that say that actually, there's only a certain kind of proof. And that if something has to be true, it has to be true for everybody. And I think one of the problems is like, I personally don't believe in homeopathy, but I think it works for other people. But I'm hugely, hugely skeptical of most of conventional medicine because it relies on tests and trials that are so short, of such a short duration, that you don't know whether the condition's going to come back again as soon as you stop taking the medication, whereas a lot of traditional medicines and natural compounds work more slowly, but so they're more expensive to test.
So in a way, let's just say you're skeptical of the medical institution.
I think you're perfectly sensible to be skeptical of the medical institution because primarily it's there to make money. And so whenever there's money involved, you've always got to be careful of what else comes along with it. For example, you find that a lot of drug companies will start trials, and when they don't see the results that they want, they don't publish those results, they can the trial. So until you get a system where every trial has to be declared before it started, and you don't accept any results from that drug or whatever it is, if someone cans any test because they're not because they're not liking the result, until you get to that stage, you've got to be very, very careful of what's called evidence-based medicine. But having said that, you can test homeopathy and show it doesn't work.
Okay, so you think for homeopathy, that's a sort of like a good example of the evidence base not working.
You do a double-blind trial on homeopathic drugs, and it just doesn't work.
Okay, so as far as you're concerned, that idea, that way of testing is actually a better, more systematic way of producing evidence, and it is a kind of, let's say, more compelling evidence than...
It's certainly a way of proving something doesn't work.
Okay, all right, okay. So, Nina, you were going to say something?
Sorry, I'm interested in hearing the definitions of Western medicine, homeopathic medicine, and then Eastern medicine, and how that differentiates between all three. So I'm not sure if Eastern medicine takes homeopathic sort of properties and then uses that. I mean, there's a lot of things like, for example, the killing of the rhino in Paris for its horn, and then people believing that has medical properties to cure cancer, etc., etc.
Okay, so there's I guess different traditions of truth, and they can lead to things like the rhino in the zoo getting. I mean, where do we want to go with this? Do we want to talk about protecting rhinos, or do we want to talk about what is the truth? What is the evidence of where that goes? Get philosophical. We can go anywhere you want. It's kind of up to you. Selim, you haven't said anything. So
I can go back to VR, and of course, agreeing with all of you about the stuff you talk about. I want to just emphasize that we are, with all the information flowing faster and faster around us, we are getting more. We are forced to decide quicker to whether it is good or bad for us. So is it good or is it bad? It is. We don't really investigate too much about the information that we receive, because we receive too much information all the time. And I want to relate this to the personal level, individual level, our unhappiness and unsatisfaction about life. So what we are brings to our life is a quick satisfaction, a quick happiness. Because we are moving from the struggle of learning and deciding things to sometimes in the off hours we try to satisfy ourselves quicker, and and as you see, the VR, instead of doing some really good changes in our life.
Yeah.
It's more into like game.
Okay, so it's into a kind of
gaming.
instant gratification.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's what the human needs at the moment, unfortunately.
Okay, so there's something about what human beings are, that they're into this, they're in a way, the current world we live in, it's all about these fast decisions and instant gratification. Carisha, you were going to say something?
Oh, yeah. I think this whole question about what is the truth is sort of impossible to answer, because you're talking about homeopathic medicine, etc. But like since the beginning of time, people have always chosen their own truth. So people right now listen to like facts, but that's been the same thing throughout history.
Yeah.
I mean, look at religion.
Why are human beings so kind of facts impervious?
I don't know, you can't always prove something, and when you prove something, if some people don't see it, then they're like, well, it's not my truth.
Yeah.
Like if you're a blind person, you don't know what color is.
Yeah.
And someone says this is red, you're like, well, I don't understand. What are you talking about? Is this real or not? I don't. It's just something you're saying.
So in a way, if sometimes you're trying to have an argument and people are almost like talking different languages, or they've got different worlds that they actually live in. We've got a new face to say. What's your name?
George.
George, we've got Carisha, we've got Lucy, we've got Nina, we've got Selim, we've got Rowan and Marlon. My name's Mikey. At the moment, we started talking about hyper-normalization, this world we live in where we kind of know all the bad stuff going on, but we don't seem to be able to do anything about it. Or is it because people are stupid? Is it because there's different kinds of truths? What is really the truth? Is it because, as Selim says, we live in this kind of fast world where there's so many things, so many decisions we need to make that we can't really deal with it? And places like this are all about that kind of instant gratification, and we don't have time. Sorry?
Externalities, how you pronounce it, but the not taken into account in economics.
Right.
So the cost to the environment. So if you did take that into account, majority of current capitalist production would be inefficient and wouldn't be making a profit. If you took into account like environmental issues and air, and wood rather than externalities, they call it in economics, and factor it into the cost of production. None of it, we wouldn't be here at this moment, probably not, because this microphone would not be making a profit.
Okay.
And that's a problem, and that's what we're denying, is the cost to the world, natural world.
Okay, interesting addition to this. If you look at things in a purely capitalistic or economic way, you didn't say capitalistic, did you? I said capitalistic, but anyway, we factored in all the environmental costs, nothing would actually get made, or nothing would happen because it'd be too high.
What would happen is happen in a different way.
Okay, yep.
So I think the word externalities is really useful because it's reminding me of, if I take that from the economic context and place it into a context of, say, culture or psychology, what else are the things that we're ignoring?
Yeah.
And it's very easy to blame ourselves for being overly anxious, or, there's a whole lot of truths I don't face, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to point my finger at a Trump voter. And I think, if you look at how the brain responds to stress,
right,
it basically starts to run faster and faster and faster. And as it does that, it wants things to be more black and white.
Right.
So it's crazy. We've got a mentality, this is just the way the brain works, and thank God most of us around the table, I think, are doing really well to kind of be able to navigate this. But you've got a world that's becoming incredibly, incredibly more complex by the second, and then you've got most people's brains going the other direction, wanting to make things as simple as possible.
So in a way, there's a kind of psychic overhead, let's call it, or externality, that we are not addressing.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to Talkaoke. This is a pop-up talk show. I see you're taking notes. Hopefully we're not getting too complicated in this discussion, but basically we started off talking about hyper-normalization and this idea that we know all the bad thing that's going on, but we seem powerless to do anything about it. And a few things have been thrown around the table. Is it because people are stupid? Is it because they don't listen to scientific evidence presented in a controlled study? They'd rather sort of be more interested in a fact that agrees with their worldview. But sorry, what's your name?
George.
So George has introduced this idea of externality. That is it because you were saying from an environmental point of view, we just can't address all the environmental costs of all the things we're making, that this world is going the way it is. And then Lucy started talking about a kind of psychological or a psychic externality, that actually, if we looked at the psychological impact of our world, it wouldn't be possible, because it's too anxious making, it's too fast, it's too much stimulus, too many stimuli, I suppose you could say. So that's where we are right now. What's going on in our world? Is it down to the stupid people? Is it down to ignorance? Is it down just to too many things happening, too much going on? Let's just get some names as well. We've got Marlon, we've got Rowan, we've got Selim, we've got Nina, Lucy, Carisha, George. What's your name?
Michelle.
Michelle, welcome. And
Will,
welcome. And my name's Mikey. So that's where we are. Any of the newcomers want to kick in, want to add something to this discussion? Or are you just going to hang on in there, pick up the pieces, try and make sense of it, as I am trying to do?
I'll follow on a little bit from what you were just saying. I believe it's a combination of apathy and overstimulation, and probably the overstimulation breeds the apathy in a way. And I think eventually you just come to the point of thinking, I'm only here for a certain number of years, I best just fall in line and make it easy on myself. Yeah. And I think that's probably where a lot of it comes from, for some people at least. Yeah, okay. So is that really apathy? Or is it just like trying, as other people have said, just trying to get on in the world? Is there an overstimulation? Does it lead to apathy?
I think so. I really like how Lucy put it, actually. It was because I feel exactly the same way. It feels like the world is getting so complex, but we strive for simplicity. That's almost what humans do with technology and whatever. We just try and make our lives easy. We try and coast along. Yeah. And it feels like those two things are kind of antithetic. They're kind of worked against each other, which is why everything's kind of a bit of a mess.
Okay, so it's hurting our brains too much, all of this stuff.
Maybe we should be teaching people to try and embrace complexity or something.
How do you do that?
I don't know. If you ask James, he'd probably say something like psychedelics get the connections firing,
Yeah. Okay. Maybe there's some technology here that's going to help us deal with this ever more complex world without actually going apathetic. I'll come to you in a second.
So I think that's really key. And I think one of the things is I think we are now living in a psychedelic world. The world is now stranger than any drug you can take. Right. Yeah. So, in actual fact, I think the people who do take psychedelics have a bit of a head start, because they're just not surprised by how weird the world actually is. Yeah. And I'm also really glad that I started reading graphic novels as a teenager. So again, I'm inoculated against how weird the world can get. And I was reading science fiction from childhood. My dad read sci-fi. So again, it's like I'm inoculated against so many ideologies. But then that's also part of, that's part of having grown up in that kind of family. There is other families where and my God, we messed up a whole lot of other stuff. So, but for me, I think a lot of it is just being able to examine belief systems. And you end up in a loop where you're going, hang on a minute, but in order to be able to examine the belief systems that allow us to unpack all the other stuff, you have to be able to distance yourself from your own culture. Right. So it's quite funny, because I think that, there's almost like a bit of a cliche about somebody going off to India and finding themselves, and yet people do. Yeah. Do you think that's just kind of a search for this kind of simplicity, or this ability to deal with the complex world we live in? I think it's something that actually. Thank you very much, New Scientist. I got to come to a talk about sci-fi, the power of sci-fi, a couple of years ago, and oh God, I've forgotten his name. One of the authors said that the whole point of science fiction is a thing called cognitive estrangement, which is to take you so far away from your everyday culture that you can look back at your own culture through a different lens. And so much of sci-fi does this. Yeah. So it's a bit like that view of the Earth from the moon kind of thing, that you get to reflect on what's going on in your normal everyday
reality. Okay, Michelle, you wanted to say something? What?
Not at the moment. I'm still processing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, let's not overstimulate here. That's what we are stuck in a world of overstimulation, where because there's so much kind of psychic pressure on us to make all these decisions, deal with all the things going on in the world, we strive for simplicity, and that's what leads to this ostensible apathy. That's what's been said on the table. Is science fiction a way out, a way to understand it, to navigate this current reality that we live in, and to be able to not shut down, as the Donald Trump voters have been accused of doing? I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? Carisha, have you got a final thought? If you're going to leave the table? What's your final thought on this?
What's my final thought?
Do you agree, disagree with the conjecture on the table?
And
you are in the telly as well. So.
Oh, great. I don't know, it's a very complex question.
All right, how do you feel? Do you feel the world's too complicated? Do you feel a psychic pressure that it's too complicated, too many decisions, too many
I guess it depends on who you are and where you live and what you do.
But what about you yourself?
No.
No, you don't feel that. Okay.
No, I don't think it's too complicated.
No, it's all dealable and doable.
It's alright.
Okay, so maybe we're just projecting this psychic pressure. Maybe it doesn't exist. Thank you, Carisha. Where are we going to go with this? Yep.
So just thinking about like simplicity. So there's a book, Simplicity in Design, and the guide designed for Apple, and it just got rid of all the kind of gumph, and actually people want simplicity. And psychologically, if you give people too many choices, they don't want them. If you give them 10 flavours, they're quite happy to only have 3 choices. Right. So it's kind of a natural thing that you want simplicity. Yeah. And then a kind of about apathy as well. A kind of there's a quote at the moment from the boxer AJ. It's like if you don't take part, you failed. And I think that's really interesting because a lot of people don't think they can take part, and by not being present, that's it, you've already failed. And then there's Alistair Humphreys, who's a kind of adventure writer, and he's on about come to the party, you're invited, it's your party, just turn up, whether you're an amateur, whether you know, whether you don't. And that's a lot of people don't have this mindset because they think they need to be ready. You're never fucking ready. It's like you're ready, this is it.
So what you're talking about is a kind of, I guess, a culture of participation, that people need to have this mindset that they are invited and they are participating rather than being a spectator.
Sorry. Technology, it provides some gadgets, but sometimes we discuss, do we really need them? Back in the 1990s, people were discussing, why should I carry a mobile phone? Well, I can phone to anyone on the phone. Or back in 2000, they were discussing, why do we need 16:9 widescreen TVs? Because my current TV is making the job, So technology is providing us these gadgets that we may play with, but one of our friends talk about the money. Actually the technology evolves under a capitalist and money-making motive. Of course, then you need to make some gadgets that people enjoy.
So you need to keep making the stuff, even though people are generally skeptical about needing a mobile phone or a widescreen. Yeah. Okay, we've got some new faces at the table. We never found out what your name is. We don't know what your name is either. So let's maybe just quickly do a round of names. I'm going to start off with you. What's your name?
I'm Oscar.
What's it?
Oscar.
Oscar and?
Rowan. Selim.
Lucy.
And welcome?
Roy.
Say again?
Roy.
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 Roy, yeah.
George.
Yep.
Michelle.
And?
Will.
Will, welcome. Okay, so we're talking about technology, we're talking about simplicity. Are we striving for simplicity? Lucy?
I think one of the things is we have to separate out the illusion of complexity from actual complexity. So I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are familiar with the work of Buckminster Fuller.
Yeah.
Looking at whole systems thinking, and actually a lot of the complexity comes from people having tried to fix things without actually understanding what's going on. So, but the problem is that I think that Bucky lived in a world that was actually a lot simpler.
Right.
So just saying, saying that systems thinking will save the world is just as bad as saying design thinking can be a process. That you just have to follow a formula.
Okay.
We can't just try and impose some kind of new kind of system, because then you just create more complexity. Okay. So to answer your question before, it's not necessarily that we need to be able to embrace complexity more. It's that actually we just need to be able to see more clearly and to accept what we see. And it's being able to accept what you see is really fucking difficult because the world is so messed up.
What do you mean accept what you see?
Well, for example, I've spent 10, 15 years of climate campaigning, and we thought, it's going to be enough if people just know about climate change.
Yeah.
No, it fucking isn't.
Yeah.
And that's why
yeah.
I'm finding things quite difficult right now with Trump, because it's just watching so much of what myself and my friends not only worked hard for, but actually sacrificed other things for.
Yeah, now, and to the extent that people know, you've actually succeeded, that people do know about climate change, but it doesn't seem to be enough. Yeah. The polar bears are still drowning.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to Oscar.
Hi. So, striving for simplicity. I think it's vicious circle is a very good way to describe the problem, if you like. Let's consider sending a letter. So years and years ago, you were writing a letter, handwriting, and then sending a postman on a horse to, gallop across the country to
very
deliver
romantic.
Very romantic.
That's what Poldark did, didn't he?
But also time-consuming. So by the time I finish my letter to you, and then you read it, it's like weeks. So what we want is to make things faster for our convenience, to make things simpler.
Yeah.
Right? Riding a horse across the country is quite difficult because it rains and the horse might get sick and stuff, and wolves. So obviously then you have telegraphs.
Yeah.
Oh, much simpler, much faster. Then you get the phones and computers. So everything to bring things to be simpler than they are.
Yeah.
But the vicious circle is such that now we have, it's in your pocket, but you have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, normal messaging, and this and that. And it's kind of, it's faster, it's simpler, but at the same time, much more difficult.
So has it in a way short-circuited our own thought that we're not spending enough time reflecting, considering, because in the old days, you'd wait 3 weeks before you got your letter back from the horse. Now it's just instant. Hello, welcome to Talkaoke. We have got Lucy, we've got Roy, we've got George, we've got Will, and Oscar, and Rowan, and Selim. I'm Mikey. What's your name?
Susanna.
Susanna, welcome. At the moment, we're talking about this world that we live in, basically. This technological world, is it too fast? Does it lead to a lack of reflection because everything's happened too quickly? These are some of the questions on the table. We're trying to understand why people can know about stuff and have access to the knowledge, yet we still have things like Trump and Brexit and stuff like that. So that's what we're trying to get our heads around, basically. Can we point the finger of blame to the technology? A lot of people have been talking about needing to make money and stuff like that. Maybe it's that. That's just the general sort of vibe of the conversation. Roy, have you got anything to add at this point, or are you still...
I just start talking. And, so I come from the advertising industry. So from the money industry. And, so I find it really interesting what you're trying to put here together. So something that you lack in the advertising industry is the academic standpoint. So we don't have neuroscientists, we don't have artists supporting why VR attracts us, why emerging technologies, immersive technologies have the effect that they do have on people. So we're not able to answer those questions. We sell things.
Are you concerned about these questions, though, that you're psychically overloading people with your advertising?
Yeah, indeed. And sometimes we just sell technology for the sake of technology. even before understanding the technology. So that's
the impact of it.
I find here. So just to give you probably my answer, yes, we go too fast.
Yeah.
In the advertising industry.
Okay,
definitely
so
we
you
go
think?
too fast.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah.
Okay, so we are going too fast. We are, but there's no way to stop the train. Are we going too fast? Do we need to slow down? Do we need to get the horses back out again? Do we actually need to simply slow down? Any thoughts on this, Will?
I think the biggest issue is not what people say, it's the fact that people don't listen anymore. There's no time. People don't take time to listen, and the most complex issues, you know, they're not satire sketches or sound bites. You have to listen. That's why Trump is allowed to say anything he wants, because people don't really listen. Right. That's why Brexit was a campaign run with zero facts from either side, because they know that people won't listen. Even if people take the time to read an article online, they're encouraged straight away to feed back their thoughts without taking time to process it. And therefore that breeds ignorance, you know. And the convenience, this drive towards convenience also runs towards entertainment. People aren't going to watch anything or read anything that doesn't instantly grab them, and therefore they don't read anything beyond that which already gets them off, sort of thing. So people just need to listen more and take more time and not feel the need to respond instantly to everything they hear, I think.
So you're saying almost the things like the comments thing under the article is actually encouraging an instant response without consideration. The other points that you made, I can't really remember because I wasn't paying attention, but I'm sure they're interesting. Okay, so do we need to slow down? Do we need to, sorry, I'll talk a bit. Do we need to slow down, reflect more, listen more? Is even things like, you know, the comments section on an article, is it encouraging an instant response rather than the reflected, considered response? I don't know. What do people think?
I think yes, but at the same time, it's also encouraging people to speak up who wouldn't previously have felt entitled to or empowered to, or you know, that there was somebody out there to listen. So yes, it's creating a burden, but then for people with you know, who've had difficult upbringings or have experienced trauma or have anything medical or psychological that, in inverted commas, the system hasn't recognised, it's been incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that what's good is that most of us around the table, we would be able to tell from ourselves whether we were making a snap comment or not.
Yeah.
And, you know, on Twitter, you can't really, you know, you can delete, but you can't really change things.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've gone back on Facebook and gone, actually, on reflection.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think it's useful to have platforms that allow you to at least reframe things.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think is interesting is that what we say online is kind of forever.
Yeah.
So although we might be encouraged to respond to things immediately, there is this, should you choose to go back and reflect, the stuff is there in a way that it never was before.
Okay.
So,
so
I don't think it's just as simple as technology is.
So posted in a millisecond, lasting forever. That's the nature of our reality.
I think we should not slow down. To be why? Because it is relative as well. I mean, if Britain could slow down, India is not slowing down, or China, or so we should keep up the pace.
Right. Okay.
So it's all about competition and relativity, and I think we, as individual level, we are trying to keep the existing. Because we are used to have the existing one, we try to grab it and hold it forever, but it's changing, so we should adapt, I suppose.
Okay, so it's actually more, in your case, it's more about letting go of the old things, embracing the speed, embracing the instant response. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Hang on. There we go, yep.
Adding to that, it's like traveling in a crowd of people.
Yeah.
And try to slow down, you know, you will be either crushed or you have to move with the mass. And as you pointed out, if Britain slows down, then India wants to go on top economically. I mean, through technology, because now it's a big factor. Technology is the big part of economy. So yes, I think physically, if you try to slow down in that crowd, it's impossible. Because you are that crowd. But mentally, if you be a little bit more aware and centered, you can slow down as an individual, but not on the, let's say, in that respect, physical level.
Okay.
Quickly, I have to add, as individual level, we have to, keep up and be aware of everything. You need to be content and satisfied with what you're doing, and probably happy person. Unfortunately, people are getting sometimes a bit more unhappy because of what they want to achieve is not what they already have.
Okay, so there's a gap between. At the same time as wanting to slow down, we're looking further and further into the future about when we're rich and successful, and the climate change has been completely stopped in its tracks, etc., etc. So we're looking too far ahead. Maybe that's making us unhappy. Susanna, any comments? Because you haven't said anything yet.
Well, being a very elderly person, I was born during the war, and along with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Bob Marley, who was 6 months younger than me, etc., etc. So we're that generation that came in during the war. Which was not a good time to be born. The world had been at war for years. Literally. And before that there was the Depression, before that there was the First World War, and before that there was just rubbish, everywhere. So so we are that wave, that generation that said, okay, we did death, kick that to the curb. This is the life after death. We're in that life. And as far as I'm concerned, around 2000 with the decoding of the DNA, that's when things finally got up to speed.
Right.
As far as my generation concerned. Now, I have several grandchildren. I have an 18-year-old grandson who's at high school in California, in Compton as it happens. He calls me up, it's free, we talk, we have the same conversations as we have at home, and it's instantaneous. And I send him stuff from Prince Air and, various references, and he tells me how he notices all his homies are all depressed, etc., etc. But it's actually very important now because we're going from a third-dimensional reality to a fifth-dimensional reality. So keep up the speed. As far as I'm concerned, the speed.
But are we ready
excellent.
to deal with that speed and that?
Well, we have to get with it.
Okay. How do we do that?
Well, I don't know how we do that. We're doing it gradually, quite speedily. And I was recently at the Royal Festival Hall a couple of weeks ago for the Orb, and Alex Patterson was doing a Q&A, and somebody asked him how the technology had affected them as musicians, DJs, etc. He said the thing with the technology is you used to have to patch everything in and do this bit and then mix it all and blah, blah. Now, he said, you can record stuff as fast as you can think.
Right.
So
okay.
I thought that's actually where we're at.
Okay. So, I mean, this is really what the discussion's about. It's about the speed of thinking, the speed of actually being able to reflect and absorb this information and deal with it and respond. Can we get up to speed? Is it about just somehow training and learning to deal with that level of speed? Michelle?
I don't know if we can. I think that as civilization progresses, we expect things to go faster and faster and faster, and the human mind probably can't keep up with that.
Yeah.
And maybe the answer to that is things like neural lacing and stuff that expand the boundaries of the human brain in very controversial ways.
Yeah.
That allow us to keep speed, but you know, is that what we want to be? To have to expand into cyborgs in order to keep up with the pace that we're, you know, that we're exacerbating. You know,
okay, should we be literally upgrading our brains in order to cope with the speeds? That's one answer. Yep, right.
Hopefully it would be about personal choice. I mean, some people might enjoy quiet, sedate lives in the mountains, just, you know, doing nothing more than making bread every day or something, which is lovely. But then, you know, conversely, some people really want to just know everything and learn everything and want to spend their life like creating incredible things, and perhaps they're going to want to embrace the speed up. I mean, or maybe it'll be an option. Maybe you can have the thing and you can just dial it to whatever you want to do that day.
Yeah, okay. I mean, are those Appalachian bread makers going to be voting for Brexit and Donald Trump?
Oh, I don't know.
Is it going to be the people that are on top speeds, like having 10 conversations at the same time?
My hunch is that the world that I sort of like loosely and flippantly kind of described would be so different politically as well that it wouldn't even be a worthy comparison.
Okay, so the politics also needs to adapt to this level of speed. Lucy?
I think in all of these conversations about speed, we're thinking, even now, I'm finding a lot of the conversation is framed in terms of people's psyches, rather than what our physical or our physical capacities, or even the capacity of the biosphere to support us.
Right.
And one of the things, I was hoping that somebody could say it so that I could shout bingo.
Yeah.
Because nobody's mentioned...
That's sitting in the middle of the table, that's what I'm doing all the time, so welcome to my world.
So, but the word I was waiting for was mindfulness. And people are saying, oh, you know, all you have to do is just meditate and everything will be groovy. And it's just like, actually no, because quite a lot of people are actually overcranked already. The last thing they want to be doing is actually programming themselves to become even more aware and sensitive. You know, so within mindful practitioners, there's a lot of kerfuffle going on about this at the moment, because it's just like, you know, just to assume that everybody's going in the same direction. You know, some people need to be more bodyful. That's the journey I'm on. Other people need to be more mindful. So, you know, we've all got different things that we're born with, but to assume that there's just one model that's helpful is really dangerous. And one of the problems that I've discovered is that if you have difficulties with your mind-body interface, you are more likely to work faster, harder, and to be more driven. So a lot of the people that we are holding up as exemplars, like the entrepreneurs, the people who are getting ahead, the people who are highly creative, are also the people who are most likely to break.
Right.
But you don't often, you won't hear about when they break down.
Yeah.
You only hear about when they're doing well, because our culture wants us to frame everything in a positive aspect.
Okay, that was you look like you've kind of like splurged out quite a lot there, but I'm still, there's one thing that I think the rest of the table needs to get clear is this. You said the difficulty with the mind-body interface. I'm not quite sure what that really means. What is a difficulty with a mind-body interface? Can anyone else jump in if they think they know what it means? Because
it's getting the balance right, and mindfulness is all very well for people who are dealing with being over ambitious, shall we say, having set, because back in the day you never heard anyone talk about what's your 5-year plan.
Right.
I hear it all the time
apart
these
from
days.
Stalin.
Stalin
had a 5-year plan back in the day.
But this is a modern thing, because it fits within job interviews, CVs, where do you expect to be, and that to the generation born at the same time as nuclear and the splitting of the atom and the discovery of LSD and all that, we went past that straight away. We were born into a state where we could be annihilated at any moment. So we never had any thought for a 5-year plan, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
And that's where people start limiting themselves. They want to get on some housing ladder. Only in Britain do you have this notion of this housing ladder that everybody's supposed to get on, you know, and then be mortgaged for their lives, which may not last, if you know what I mean. It's like, it's become, because they're dealing with old paradigms, and that's where Trump and Corbyn and Putin and all those guys, they are literally coming out of this old paradigm and trying to repackage it for now. And Trump doesn't even do media. I mean, technology.
Yeah.
He only does tweets and watching cable.
Okay.
So those guys, to me, are of, I mean, Corbyn and Trump have had 3 wives apiece. So that tells you quite a lot about where they're at,
Okay. Okay. Corbyn and Trump together in a kind of dance of obsolescence. Yep, go on.
Very, very quickly, I'm aware I've done a lot of talking this morning, but if people want to find out...
everyone's interested, they're hooked in, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
If you want to find out more about the mind-body interface, one of the key things to look at is the autonomic system.
Yeah,
so
what's that?
It's kind of like your body's second brain. It's things like the vagus nerve and the things that your body does without you knowing that you're doing it.
Right.
And it's possible for that to get quite out of balance. Diet will do it, stress will do it, that kind of thing. And a lot of the so-called mental disorders that we have are actually, it appears now, much more to do with autonomic and that kind of thing. And the thing is that the brain will try and overcompensate for what the autonomic system does, which is why you end up being a little overcranked.
Right, okay. So this kind of, let's say, this age of anxiety, this age of nervousness is caused by the autonomic nervous system, which is the background nervous system, in a way, kind of reacting or being, I guess, overstimulated, and then the brain, the other side of the nervous system tries to compensate for that. Any thoughts on this side?
Well, we went into Trump and Corbyn, and that's definitely not something.
Are they part of the old guard? Are they part? Do you agree with Susanna? They're part of this old guard, the sort of final manifestation of a kind of old way of doing things.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I see humanity as a wave, and anything. We are part of nature. We're human beings. So there's always a wave going upwards, but with some ditches going down and up and down. So right now we are, fairly high up, much higher than whatever 30, 50 years ago in terms of technology, understanding of what we are, who we are. But there is this comeback, and we're dipping down.
We're going down.
Yeah, but that's also part of the part of nature. I see.
It's part of a kind of natural cycle.
Yeah, it has to. If you have something going on your skin, like a spot or something, dimple. You have to squeeze it out.
So just going on with the spot squeezing analogy, just to really, we've got a spot now that we need to squeeze out.
Yeah, it's being squeezed right now.
Okay, so we're in the process of squeezing the spot. And what is the spot?
It's a comeback to the old, which is obsolete, and it's not going to work in our system anymore.
So this Brexit and Trump, which both were mentioned, are the spot that needs to be squeezed or is being squeezed right now.
And it will hurt for a while, only to have it cleared in the near future. That's my optimistic thought.
All right, okay. Do people agree with this spot squeezing analogy? Is it about squeezing the spot? Do we need to, as a society, squeeze the spot of Trump and Brexit? Is that what's going on? That's what Oscar's saying, that we just need to... We're kind of in the process. It's painful right now because we're literally in the process of getting our thumbs underneath the infected pus sac just to, pop it out. And we'll feel a lot better when it actually happens.
Yeah, I do kind of agree, and I like the analogy because it also opens up the idea of there being us being sold a quick fix in the term of some kind of zit cream or something like that, and our society keeps trying to sell us quick fixes for things, and politicians latch onto that. So Farage and people like that, they're saying, "Oh, this quick fix will sort us all out," but it's bollocks because it's too complex. And I do completely agree with Susanna. I feel like regardless of left or right, the current crop of politicians
Give us a final thought,
are just too
Susanna. Oh, no,
They're just the current crop of politicians just don't represent anyone because they represent dead people.
Okay, what's this?
This is so that I can
You've got your own microphone.
I'm a writer, so I forget everything, just like that, and I will be writing.
You're very welcome also to access our entire archive of Chit Chat, not just this session, but all of the sessions. We've got Rick over there. Say hello to Rick. Give us a wave. And that is a public archive. That's in the public domain because we are creating. This is a public session. It belongs to everybody. So you're very welcome to use and abuse that in any way you want. Should you have not remembered to turn, you're very welcome to use your devices. Everyone else is as well. We don't hold a monopoly on recording devices, of course. Anyway, were you going to say something on top of that?
I was thinking about saying something.
We're talking about squeezing the spot.
Squeezing the spot seems, I think that we need to organise if we want to overthrow the current status quo. As somebody who sort of defines herself as left-wing, I feel like the left is floundering and it needs a solid plan if we are going to squeeze this spot and actually eradicate it rather than complaining about it.
Okay.
And you have things like the Occupy movement and stuff, which were great in concept, but there was no plan.
Okay.
And we need to fight them at their own game by having a proper plan if we're going to talk about politics.
Okay, well, we can do. If that's the way we want to take it, it's kind of up to you. My job in the middle is simply to make sure everyone understands everybody else and move this microphone around. I'm just a microphone porter. If that's the way we want to go, that's the way we want to go. Michelle says we need a plan. We need a proper plan if we're going to squeeze the spot.
Couple of sentences really coming back to mindfulness. I think if we are just all a little bit more centered and mindful and aware of what's going on and think positive, not think against, oh, I hate Trump, he's a shithole, whatever. Then I believe in common consciousness, which we are not, we don't really sense it with our five senses, but maybe the sixth sense is linked to that cloud, if we like, and if that cloud is pure, then things are going to change naturally.
Okay, so we don't need a plan. We just need mindfulness.
The plan will come out.
The plan will emerge. Okay. I've got a new face to the table. Let me just say hello. This is Talkaoke. I don't know if you've been listening or not, but we're talking politics at the moment. Are the likes of Nigel Farage and Donald Trump a kind of spot on humanity that needs to be squeezed? And it's painful now, but eventually we're going to have a clearer complexion. That's what the analogy that Oscar's brought to the table. Michelle says we need a plan. Oscar says the plan will emerge just by being mindful and by having a connected common consciousness. That's where we are right now. What's your name?
I'm Tony Langford.
We've got Lucy, we've got George, we've got Michelle, Will, Oscar, Rowan and Selim. My name's Mikey. Have you got anything to add at this point, or you just want to pick up the pieces and chip in? Okay, so Rowan, you had something to say?
Yeah, kind of. Sorry, I've probably lost the thread a little bit. I like the idea of optimism, but definitely share that. But one thing I do worry about, if people become naively optimistic, I think they might accidentally miss their own privilege sometimes and think, actually, the world's okay. Why is everyone complaining? Because they're privileged and are able to be optimistic in the first place. I just think I worry that it's also a bit of a quick fix solution.
So optimism by itself is not enough. Actually, you need to do something with that optimism.
Because generally, to be optimistic, not always, but to be optimistic, I feel like you've probably got something going right already.
Okay. I'm going to rephrase that. Is techno-optimism a symptom of privilege? That's slightly a bit more controversial than what you said, I know, but in the middle, you can paraphrase people in a completely incorrect way. That's the great thing about Talkaoke. Okay,
So yeah, just about a white privilege. So a friend of mine works with Aborigines, and from their point of view, they can't get access to to things we take for granted, like fair laws, etc., etc., etc. And we just don't see that point of view. and it's just that's really shocking. But then the other point about mindfulness, I think mindfulness is great. We need to stop and take a breath and slow down and what have you. But I think there needs to be more understanding. There's this good book I've been reading, The Chimp Paradox, which is about the chimp paradox. It's about your kind of emotional kind of reaction, your kind of rational reaction. Yeah, limbic brain. So great. People read it, so it's great. Yeah, these kind of things. But I think more awareness of how your brain works and how you're emotionally reacting to things, and how you might have to deny some of your emotions because they're idiotic. If I reacted on my emotions every day, I'd kill 20 people on the way to the tube. You know, so you often avoid them. Your feelings aren't divine.
What station is that?
Actually, it's Brighton, but there's okay. But you know, so people have to realise that your feelings maybe are ridiculous. Ignore them, and there's a better answer, which is kind of sometimes it's innate, or sometimes it's who you think you really are is really who you are, and to go with your kind of rational idea of yourself. But it'd be interesting to hear. So I've forgotten your comments.
Okay, so you. Lucy, you were saying something about that with the chimp brain. If we're aware that we have got chimp brains, then perhaps we can reflect on that a little bit more.
Well, the chimp brain is actually responding to the limbic system, so it's fight and flight, it's a survival, it's our tribal kind of relationships to each other, it's power struggles, that kind of thing. And it does actually tie into that autonomic system I was talking about, and the need for things to be black and white, under stress. It is all interrelated. This is all stuff that...
But I think what George is saying is if we know that our immediate response is chimp-like, then we can reflect a bit more.
I think the problem is that we think we do, but we don't.
Okay, we think we do, but we don't. Okay, I'm going to come to Tony.
I'm interested in how technology can help us to have this awareness, rather than what it's maybe normally associated with, which is distracting us and taking us away from the present moment, and essentially leaving us in this sort of kind of state of automaticity almost. We're just reacting continually, or we're just sort of on automatic pilot. And technology it sort of makes that happen a bit, because we just kind of got these phones that we're constantly checking like a kind of crutch next to us.
So in a way,
but there are ways that, and this is kind of what we're sort of talking about here. Really, is how technology can sort of do the opposite. Rather than distract us, it brings us back into presence.
Have you got a start to throw in the pot about how technology could actually help us be more reflective? How it can help us think less chimp-like and more Spock-like?
Well, I guess, I mean, a lot of virtual reality, for instance, is taking us away. It's kind of like, it's this sort of escapism. It's like removing us from our reality. But I'm kind of interested in researching in different technologies that do the opposite, and they actually kind of bring us back into ourselves. Okay. So anything that enables us to do that makes us more aware of, our own physiological reactions.
I'm going to throw this out to the panel. Is there technology out there that exists that can do that? Does technology actually do the opposite and stimulate the limbic system and the chimp side of our personalities?
Just for some reason it came to mind, something like maybe the Fitbit, not as a great example, but just like as something that is almost ubiquitous, that actually tells you something about your body. And there's, I don't know, just throwing that out there.
A kind of think bit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could kind of extrapolate forward. Yeah. What's a Fitbit going to be like in like 20 years' time or something? I don't know.
Okay, could you have a think bit that would actually help us think and actually tell us where we're thinking, at this point on your GPS kind of route around the city, you were particularly chimp-like?
I can't remember what I was going to say now, but it was something about knowledge being fleeting because of computers, but then about habit-forming products. So there's a whole thing about there's books, isn't there, how to build habit-forming products. And as we all know, email's like gambling, and when you get an email, it's like the jackpot. And this is a problem with it. So, but someone talked about marketing and how evil that is, but some marketing can be for good. It can make us do good things. Right. So marketing can be switched and flipped to do positive things, and using all the psychological and all the nasty things that make us buy shit could make us, think. Yeah. What did you say? A think bit. We need some think bit.
Okay. All right. Any views? There's a surprising number of people taking notes around the. I don't think we've ever had so many note takers around the table at the VR session of the Sci-Fi Festival. We've got more people taking notes than ever before.
Can I just say, going back to the thing about is there a technology that can tell? I'm kind of working on this, and if anybody's really interested, then please speak more with me. But actually, the biggest technology that people have found are actually animal assistants. So, for example, if somebody has severe anxiety or a condition like autism, and they get overwhelmed, and then they get shut down, and they become highly vulnerable, an animal can actually spot when somebody is being overwhelmed, and they can actually draw their attention to it in a way that technology, as far as I know, cannot
like
yet
a dog?
do. Yes.
Okay.
Usually it's a dog.
Okay, so a dog. Maybe the dog is the answer here. Have we? Yeah. What's that?
Dogs are always the answer.
Okay, the dog is the answer. Interesting. The dog. Do we need a think bit that tells us to think in a more reflective way in this high-speed, high-technology world, or do we simply need a dog? That's what we're talking about now. Come and have a seat. Come and get involved in this. Are we thinking too much? Are we psychically oppressed by the world we live in? And is technology the answer, or is a dog the answer? That's what we're talking about right now.
Sorry, there's a really good documentary about the emotional seal, which is a robot which people with senile dementia hug this robot and it responds to big flashy eyes, and people who haven't spoken for like years have spoken after. It's similar to a dog, but the dog poos and is wheezes
so it's like
and stuff.
A clean dog.
Yeah, but the robot is just, all you need to plug it in and it'll vibrate and stuff. But that's technology for good. And also my mate's working with virtual reality with people with Alzheimer's, and one of the issues is appetite. So they show them virtual feasts, and that stimulates their appetite. So there is obviously good examples of technology for good.
Okay, so an electronic seal or a living pooing dog. These are some of the options on the table at the moment. This is Talkaoke Pop-Up Talk Show. We started talking about the world we live in and the politics in a way, and we sort of got to this point of like our own minds and are we reflecting enough. Oscar is saying that everything will become clear when we achieve this kind of collective consciousness. But other people have been saying, well, actually, we're never going to do that unless we reflect more. And that's where we are right now. So we're talking about, George has just mentioned this seal. Lucy's mentioned a dog, just a simple dog, is the best thing really to actually get to that point. So that's where we are right now. What's your name?
Pippa.
Pippa. We've got Selim, we've got Rowan, we've got Oscar, Will. We've got Michelle, and this is George, and this is Tony. My name's Mikey, and this is Lucy. And we've got Rick on camera as well, which we shouldn't forget, as we're in this kind of empathic, reflective, considerate state right now. So where do we want to take this conversation? Is a dog the answer? Is an electric seal the answer? Does everyone need to have their own little furry seal that they carry around with them?
Quick question to you: is your brain enhanced anyhow, so you remember all these names? I'm really blown away.
It does actually impinge on this conversation. Sorry, Pippa, is it because the secret to remembering the names is just to be present in the moment and just not worry about where the conversation's going, about is this fun or entertaining. But just to be here in the moment, and then you just remember it. So it's about a certain self-belief. What's that?
Mindfulness.
Kind of mindfulness. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
mouthfulness. Yes.
That's a very good point you just made there, because you're not closing yourself off to anything, to any possibilities. Ultimately, memory just comes from presence. If we're not there in the moment, then how are we supposed to remember it in the future? Just wanted to say as well, in terms of what were these technologies that can kind of help us to be more present. It is about sort of how can a technology kind of shine a new perspective on our view. So this technology I'm working on is called photography, which stands for field of view imaging. So it's a new imaging technology that aims to replicate the human visual system, the way that we see the world, the way that we see, in a way that conventional imaging actually very inaccurately portrays.
So
it's very simple, but just that then brings awareness to the way that we see. And for instance, it brings in all this peripheral vision, peripheral information that's always excluded from conventional imaging, cameras, moving image, and so on. And so when we've actually done some tests and some trials to see how this technology can actually enhance mindfulness training.
I think you're going to have to explain that a bit more. I don't know what other people think, but what you're actually doing, you're actually making people aware of their peripheral vision through some kind of device. Through the imaging, what people see is what they would see if they were there. So you get this sort of heightened sense of first-person perspective, right?
In a way that you don't get. You actually get a sense of three-dimensionality as well, even though it's actually on effectively a flat surface. It's a 2D image.
Right.
So through this kind of heightened sense of perspective, you get this kind of additional empathy, which actually kind of applies to the self as much as it does to others.
Right.
So it basically kind of enhances self-awareness, if you like.
So in some ways, it's like that is an example of technology really facilitating something really important, because in some ways up to now, something like a television screen has actually been something that divorces us from reality, and what you're saying is this is actually going to bring people closer.
Okay, so it's a kind of empathy technology. I still don't really understand what it is, and it just sounds like a camera that's like maybe blurred on the edges or something like that, or like with a very wide angle. I don't know what other people maybe know more about it. I'm not a technology expert. George, you've changed. What's your name?
It's Lawrence. Hi.
Lawrence. So we have got Tony, we've got Lucy, we've got Pippa, we've got Selim, we've got Rowan, Oscar, Will, and Michelle. My name's Mikey. At the moment, we're talking about empathy technology. At the moment, all of this kind of, all of this kit actually sort of distracts us. It blinkers us. It closes us off. It responds to our most instinctive, like immediate responses rather than actually helping us reflect. So we're talking about technology that does the opposite. And what we've got so far is an electric seal and this kind of technology, which I don't really understand. It's something to do with a proper field of vision where you actually can see and feel the whole field of vision rather than just the kind of, what you'd get from a conventional camera. We've got a new face over here. What's your name?
Hello, my name's Michelle.
All right, another Michelle. So we've got Will, Michelle, Lawrence, we've got Tony, we've got Lucy, Pippa, Selim, and Rowan, and Mikey. I don't know if you just heard that. We're talking about technology which is more empathic, rather than technology which encourages us to be more responsive, more immediate in our response, and kind of, someone earlier on mentioned the chimp brain, the kind of like emotionally respond to stuff. What about technology that makes us a bit more empathic, that makes us a bit more considered, that makes us a bit more reflective?
Sorry, is that not the point of like writing and film and everything? Is that not the point? And if people don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. If people aren't willing to read a 750-word article, I doubt they're going to be willing to take a journey, put on a headset, and experience the life of a refugee just because they think they should. It's not an answer. It's this echo chamber. People who are liberal and want to do those things will do those things. The mass won't do it, so therefore it's futile.
Will the masses be interested in empathy technology?
I mean, as someone, I used to work for a company that actually made a VR experience, which was experience life in the Calais jungle camp, and it was like a half-hour-long documentary. And the issue that I always had with it was, of course, this thing that you view it in a solitary confinement of a VR headset. And when I was working there, like my whole thing was, how is this valid if it's not evoking conversation, if it's not evoking communication between people? So while I mean, I now work for a company that exclusively makes 360 videos, okay?
Yeah.
So while I see value in that as a form of content creation, the issue I still have every day is how do I get more than one person to watch this and then talk to the person next to them, because the person next to them is then going to have to put the headset on. So this isn't an answer to anything. All I'm identifying is a problem, which is the immersive content is amazing and it can put you somewhere. It has the capacity to evoke empathy, I think is what we're getting at. But until we develop some sort of technology that allows people to share that collectively, and there's things like VR cinemas that are coming about, but they're still limited, and it's still 20 people in a room all not looking at each other. They're all in headsets. So what is there? Connected VR? I don't know. Does that exist? I have no idea.
Okay.
Well, you've got, I don't know if you know about the second iteration of, Second Life, that big kind of thing from the noughties. The second iteration of that is now called High Fidelity. What they're planning on basically building an entire virtual universe, so people plug in, and that might be a good platform for that sort of thing, but it's in early stages, but I can see them being able to create this entire meta-reality that sort of, it's like a, Borges' map that sort of expands over our entire universe as it stands, and that can be a virtual way for people to come together, as it were, but then you end up with this idea of people then being trapped in their physical bodies, growing more and more obese in their own homes because they're not they're just plugged in.
Okay, I've seen a few sci-fi films like that. I'm not going to mention it. It's not my job to mention them myself. But I feel that Will's point has not been addressed, which he was saying that all of this empathic technology, will it have mass appeal that will actually be large enough to be able to make a change?
It's proof that people don't want to do it. You look at television ratings, for example, the mass hits are soaps and sports fixtures. If any documentary, like the BBC recently highlighted that Red Nose Day are funding arms to Saudi Arabia with the money they do, but because the BBC needed it, they put it on at 12:30 at night when no one was going to watch it, because they know no one cares enough to watch it, because they're not going to go on iPlayer and watch it.
Right.
People don't give a shit about anything outside of their sort of 2-mile radius at any one time, apart from obviously people sat around here today. We're this small section who are open to this sort of thing. Most people won't want to do it. They won't want to hear about it.
Is this table and this festival a kind of open-mindedness filter that filters out all the open-minded people to get them out of the way of interfering with the common reality?
Hi, my name's Michelle. I'm here on behalf of the Cosmic Trigger play, which opened yesterday. So I'm only going to be here for an hour, I'm afraid, because I've got press night to do.
Yeah.
But just picking up on what you guys are talking about empathy, bringing in empathy and bringing in more kind of involvement with sort of human emotions, I think we have to be quite careful about collective nouns, about talking about people, because I think all people are capable of being empathetic and non-empathetic depending on where they are in their life, how they're feeling, whether they're hungry, whether they're tired. And ratings tell you one thing, but I think possibly the most important thing to remember as creators and people who are working on the edges of technology is it's up to us to create the content that creates empathy, that creates thought. That's what art is. People like, Hitchens said it, Alan Moore said it. It's like art's also magic, so and it has the capability to transform people's thoughts or bring them outside of themselves. And technology is just a tool, man.
Okay, so technology is a tool. The empathic technology exists. It's down to the curators, the people that actually program, the programmers, to actually put the right stuff out there for people. Pippa, did you want to say something? Or
I was just going to talk about, if we're talking about empathy, we need to talk about psychology and the psychology of putting a barrier between two humans. And you'll have to forgive me because this is taking me all the way back to A-level psychology. But you learn that there's a lot of studies about people wearing masks more likely to commit crimes and not care about other people. And if you think about technology as a mask between two people, does that not mean that it's actually preventing them from being truly empathic because it's putting a barrier between them and someone else?
Okay, the mask. Hang on a sec. We haven't even found out who you are, and you're already wading in. Who are you?
Hello, Mikey. Hello, everyone around the table. My name is Louis Savvy, and welcome to my film festival, Sci-Fi-London. So, hey. And you're talking about technology barriers and what we create as art. We often have a lot of discussion in my house. I have 3 young kids, and saying in 20 years' time we'll be looking back and laughing and saying, do you remember when they let kids have mobile phones? You know, like you wouldn't encourage them to smoke or drink and all those other things. We'll start saying we need to take that technology away from them again very soon, because
it'll be a bit like in the 80s when all the kids smoked. Is that what you're trying to say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, we'll look back and laugh at the fact that we let technology into the hands of very young people, thinking it's they should have an iPad because it's educational, and eventually we'll find out that it's they should be creating still with their hands and still with their brains and so on, and the technology can be a tool much later on if they need to.
Lawrence?
For me, I really agree with that thing about technology just being a tool that leads you towards empathy, because creation is the key. Like the creation of these things, it's not my job to decide, oh, I'm not going to make that thing because no one's listening. No, I make that thing because I want people to listen and I want people to have the conversation. So I don't eliminate that possibility that someone might care about what I've made or might want to talk to someone about what I've made. And likewise, I've got to slightly disagree with this thing about technology being a mask. I think technology frees you. I think technology as a tool, given...
what does it free you to do?
It frees you to create. It frees you to talk to people, and it frees you to... That's what it stimulates empathy, is communication. And if technology in its purest form, the dream of the internet was that it was this pure communication tool, we just have new things now which allow us to do what that original dream was. And if it is creating, like touching the information, and like what this guy's doing right here, he's creating. I mean, no one's talking to him because he's wearing a headset, but it's...
is he being antisocial? Is he being pro-social in this
if we were all stood there looking at what he was drawing and creating on that screen, we could have a conversation about what the painting is.
Just by the very fact that we're watching him and talking about him, so there is an impact already from what he's doing. The fact that it's on the screen and we can all see it, we can connect with what he's doing. He doesn't need us to directly have a conversation with him.
This is what I think Michelle's point was really important about everything's contextual and temporally relevant. I mean, if something isn't social in an instant, it could be social as a manifestation, like talking about it afterwards and things like that. So it's
all about context.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. The context, getting the context right, I suppose.
I'm going to have to head. I just wanted to say thank you so much for.
Thanks for coming
today
down.
and the space, and it's been.
Give us a final thought before you go.
My final thought, I think so much of what I've said has actually been a bit pessimistic, and I think that the optimistic side of me, is saying it's not so much we're squeezing a pimple, it's just that technology is showing us things. And a lot of people don't like what they see, and they're fighting back against it because it doesn't match their vision.
Okay.
And I think that, maybe this is arrogant, but a lot of us around this table do feel we're seeing things clearly, and that we've got a better model. And who knows? Maybe we'll get there soon enough to save some species, and even save ourselves. I don't know.
All right. So. It goes back to in a way to the optimism pessimism thing. Lawrence, give us a final thought.
Make stuff, talk to each other, and do it using technology.
Okay. Are you off? Okay. So you were going to say something, Tony?
Yeah. I was just thinking that it's not necessarily the technology that's ever the problem. It's always our relationship to it, or the way we manage it. And the point that he was picking up on about this shared immersion that's so important, and of course if it's isolating us and stopping us from talking to each other, then that's never going to be a great thing. But if it's managed in such a way, and we have a relationship with it in such a way that there's more kind of a shared immersion, and it's kind of, as I said before, kind of bringing us.
Are you optimistic that that's actually going to happen and it's going to have mass appeal?
Well, yeah, in the long term, I think we're in this maybe sort of awkward phase, and we have this kind of awkward relationship with it right now.
Yeah.
But so looking ahead, I'm more optimistic. Yeah.
So it's this kind of teenage awkwardness that we're
I'm just saying goodbye because I've tuned in, I've jacked up, and I'm now checking out. And I'll be back very soon.
That's a Twitter
Everybody,
generation.
have a lovely day. Enjoy Talkaoke, the world. Bye-bye.
Have you got a final thought before you go?
Yeah, I hope my motorbike still works. That's my final.
All right.
Oh, a final thought for the table. Yeah, as Orwell said, don't let it happen. It depends on you. That's, I think, fits with artist propaganda. It depends on us. We just need to keep doing this stuff.
Okay. So we've suddenly been handed an incredible responsibility. It's up to us. It's up to. We've always had it, but we've suddenly been made aware of this responsibility, this very grave responsibility. It's up to us to make sure that the future of culture goes in the right way. Not necessarily just us on the table, but us in a more general sense. Will, you were opening your mouth as if you were about to say...
It's not a conversation that's never been had, though, is it? It's cyclical. The whole thing about politics, people are never happy. There will never be perfection. There's too much pressure for the world to be perfect. You know, there's a root of philosophy that says the whole point of awful shit is it makes the good stuff so much better. And that's so true. But why do we need to fix absolutely everything? Why do we need radical change? Again, in politics, no one can say, and I know I'm a privileged white male, but no one can say that the majority of the world does gradually getting better for 99% of people. Slowly, all we can do is make sure we don't go backwards, which is what we're doing with Brexit and Trump. That's all we can do. The rest, there's too much pressure to make it better straight away. We should be happy that when we leave, we've left it in a slightly better state than when we got it.
Okay,
and
that
with
should be
Trump,
our goal.
we've gone backwards, and that's the problem.
Okay. So our goal should be leaving it slightly better. We're kind of going backwards, so we just need to try and reverse that.
What I would add to that is that that's the human condition, because we, all through history, we have had a habit, collective nouns, we have had a habit of falling for the strong man, and it tends to happen after you've had a period of, flux. So Napoleon comes after the French Revolution, and Hitler comes after the First World War, and I think with the Trump and Brexit thing, there's a lot of uncertainty about globalization, which has kind of given them an opportunity. That and the Cambridge Analytica kind of gaming of the system, once you've got people on the internet who are, again, collective nouns, who are receiving this information and not necessarily processing it in any other way than they're used to processing established information. I mean, this is what Adam Curtis is talking about in his hypernormalization.
That's how we started off this whole session way back at the very beginning, was this very concern. But what people were saying at the very beginning, I think it was only Rowan that's here now. Lucy's gone now, is that we can know all of this stuff and we can be aware of this whole process without it there was a frustration around the table at that starting point. That we can know all these things, but knowing isn't the same as having an ability to change it.
What do we do about it? That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
We make art. We change minds. We get people aware of how the system works. Back in the day, you had certainty if you had one encyclopedia. The way to ruin reality for people is give them two encyclopedias, and then suddenly they got two different lists of what things mean. Reality is mutable. Reality is a plurality. And the sooner people understand that, the sooner we get towards model agnosticism and away from Euclidean either or. Euclidean
slow down.
Model agnosticism is not having a full 100% belief in any one model. Going back to semantics, going back to, I can never pronounce his name because I only ever read it in books. There's a Polish guy, his name's like Kaborski, who said the map is not the territory. All of our understanding of reality is based in our central nervous system, and it's all based on past experiences, experiences and past emotions connected to past experiences make us think a certain thing is a certain way and we'll have certain results. So we all have what Robert Anton Wilson, who my play is about, these things called reality tunnels. And your reality tunnel is your idea of what's going on in the world from your central nervous system's interpretation of the signals that the world is giving to you. And they're your models, and that's what Bob called a reality tunnel. We've all got our own reality tunnels. The problem now is because everyone's got access to all this information, as opposed to, a peasant who only knew what his dad and the priest told him. Yeah. Our truth and our reality isn't coming from God and our parents, it's coming from the internet. And if most of us feel happy and safe with, most of us don't like cognitive dissonance, so we like information that shows up what we already think we know and that proves we're right, so we feel safe. That's basic kind of human wiring. So when you get somebody who's, this used to happen with tabloids, this isn't a new thing, this was happening in the 20th century with TV, what programs you watch, what papers you read, none of this is different. The difference is, when you've got the internet and people are clicking, they can get so quickly from, I'm not really keen on all these immigrants coming over from Syria, to, oh my God, they're going to take your pensions, we're going to have Turkey people on every corner, and so on and so on. And it's 3 clicks on YouTube, and you're straight into MK Ultra and flipping InfoWars.
Okay, so let's just, from that, take this idea of model agnosticism, and that in a way it's a sort of skepticism of all the models that are out there to explain our reality. Is that the reality of the 21st century, that it's about that kind of skepticism of all models, of all versions of the truth, of all structures in which to understand stuff?
Tribalism, because at the moment we've got a lot of tribalism happening where people feel personally threatened when somebody challenges their viewpoint, because they're not necessarily bad people, the people who voted for Brexit, and the more we call them idiots and the more that they say, yeah, you've been duped, you've been brainwashed, you've been this, you've been that, the more that tribalism digs in, and the less likely they are to listen to you. So it's learning to listen to each other is really hard, because everyone's I say again, collective nouns, a lot of people are feeling quite threatened, so they're kind of shutting down, and also, as we know, echo chambers, so they're not necessarily even seeing all the points of view. And how do we get people to look at other stuff? Well, let's see, comedy. Comedy can get some truth through. As they said in King Lear, the jester has the ear of the king. Art can get ideas under the table. So, technology, the medium's the message is everything.
All right. Okay. I'm going to come to you in a second, Will, because Rowan's had his hand up.
One of the problems I think we come across is it's quite cathartic. You're referring to tribalism, it's quite cathartic to actually damn a group, because it makes us sort of feel better that we're a bit superior, and we can be aware of that, but still kind of enjoy it as well, which is, I think, worrying. As enlightened people, we still fall down those pitfalls. But the other thing is, I think, I feel like if you have too much information, isn't that part of what breeds apathy as well? I kind of agree that we should be super skeptical, super open-minded about everything, including the systems that govern us. But doesn't it make us apathetic? There's all this stuff going on that's conflicting.
Does this model agnosticism generate apathy? Will, what were you going to say?
I was only going to say again, satire, for example, and comedy. For liberals, it's great, because it gives us an excuse to poke fun at the other side, the people who wanted Brexit or wanted Trump. And we say a few times around here, it's been the word tell and show. It's not a case of that, because where do we get the ego to assume that Brexit was a bad thing, or that Trump is a bad thing? His message is something that I don't agree with, but what if 10 years down the line we go, fuck, that guy really
did something,
shook it up, and look at us now. There's a liberal arrogance that comes along with it, and it comes through everything. It comes through art, through technology, through politics, that we think because we're compassionate, we're clever. And I think that's very rarely probably true.
Okay.
So and again, it's not the collective, it's the individual. We can't spend our time trying to make everybody feel the way we do. We just have to go through the world feeling the way we do and acting appropriately, and hope that, that rubs off on the right people. But I don't think I'm right.
Are we infected with a kind of arrogance as a let's say the kind of people that comes to this event? Aren't we slightly a little bit arrogant? Yeah.
Friday afternoon, and we're sat here doing not much. We're not contributing to anything. We have this luxury. We're contributing to. Is it a podcast?
Well, it will be. The people
echo
speak. I've given out.
We're contributing to the echo chamber. We have nothing to complain about. We have no right to say what's wrong or right in this world.
Yeah.
It's.
Do we have a right or don't we have a right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we all have a right, including the people we disagree with, and that's the thing that we're getting our heads around. And I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. I think there's everybody on all sides are digging their heels in at the moment to an extent. It can feel like that when you're, floating around on Facebook. And I think that's my point, really, is that, model agnosticism is saying we don't have the answers. We don't know what's right and what's wrong. We're saying that there's probably a bit of right and wrong in all of them, including Brexit and Trump. So, yeah, coming at it as in that sort of tribal way isn't going to help us in the next sort of 50, 100 years when we're getting into, much more automation, much less job security, all that kind of thing. We need new models, and we also need to stop this believing 100% in our own belief systems, or the belief systems we decide to adapt when ours don't work. That's a human trait. We need to be a bit more relativist, and it's actually, in some ways, it's quite liberating to be like that and say, we're all a bit wrong, we're all idiots, we're all cosmic schmucks, and that's kind of...
Cosmic schmucks.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I mean, I'm just going to say it might be time to get some final thoughts for this session, because you are right. Well, we're just sitting around talking about stuff, not contributing. So maybe it's time to actually get on and contribute. Although Rowan at some point is going to make either now, or if you want to just break for a banana or something like that. But let's just get some final thoughts for this session.
Final thoughts.
You were here from almost the very beginning as well.
It was quite interesting to listen to all of you. Really, thank you very much for your contribution. And I'm not disagreeing. I do agree with almost every one of you. And coming back to this, what shall we do about this technology and how we're coping with this? I think as long as we can keep the checks and balances in the society, I'm meaning the democracy, and the courts or all the governing bodies, let people do whatever they want. The technology is evolving, and let's use it. And maybe we can find alternative solutions to existing problems, and let it go. So I think we will be surviving. We will be getting better, and mankind has to be more intelligent.
Does technology have a solution to Brexit, for example?
Technology, I think, is helping us to get more information and discuss and share our thoughts. And from this notion of polarity, let's say, people are contributing and people are talking. I think there's a good sense coming out of it. And if the 60-70% of the society wants something, it's happening.
Okay, so it's good. It's good in a way. We're just on final thoughts right now, people. But I don't know if you've been listening or not. We're gathering or harvesting those final thoughts. Have you got a final thought? You've only just sat down, I know.
I know, but I was thinking about the Brexit thing, and you could say that technology could partly be to blame for Brexit in a way because of the information and how we share it, but also going forward, you could use technology to encourage different people to vote, or to engage people in a different way that might actually have overturned that, or in the future maybe change things for us. I don't know. So that's my final thought. It's very mixed up. It's probably the most open-ended thought ever.
Well, that's good, because we are going to have another session, and maybe we can examine and add to some of those ideas in the session that's coming up.
I just wanted to say, I think if we can, it's as healthy as possible for us to surround ourselves with people of opposing views to our own.
Yeah.
Obviously, technology doesn't always enable that.
Yeah.
But any ways in which it can, through different kind of perspective taking. So as an empathy engine or any other ways that we discussed, that it can kind of give us that other point of view. I think that's got to be good.
I mean, can technology take us to those with opposing views? I mean, could it? Is there a way?
It can take you into the mind of another. So yes.
Okay, yeah, it can do that, but
I like the point.
Does it want to do that?
I like the point you were talking about, the sort of reality tunnels, I think, as you described them. That's kind of that is true, isn't it? We kind of live our lives in our own worlds.
Yeah.
So what technology can do is sort of to take us out of that and into other people's worlds.
Okay, we're actually just getting final thoughts for this session, but welcome. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. You look like an iPad. We've never had an iPad. Come forward, come a bit forward. You can do it without hitting a chair. We're just gathering final thoughts. At the moment we're talking about, is technology a kind of barrier between people? Can it actually increase empathy? Can it increase our understanding of other people's viewpoints? Does it want to bring other people's viewpoints in? I don't know if you can hear us. Can you hear us? Just nod. You can, okay. And that's what we're talking about right now. We're just gathering some final thoughts. So final thoughts on this side of the table?
Yeah, I think relativism is key. Like, acknowledge there is no such thing as good, bad, evil, right, wrong, etc., and just realise it's all on a relative terms. It's like there might be some good in Brexit, but we might not know it for 1,000 years. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Final thoughts?
Yeah, reality is perception. And when it comes to beliefs and opinions, never believe your own BS. Okay. Always take it with a pinch of salt.
Okay. Will, final thought?
No. I'd say broadly, I think of it like this. Like, if you move to a new area or you find yourself in a new borough of London and you want to go to the pub, don't go to the one that you feel most comfortable in or that you think is going to appeal to you. Go into the one that almost intimidates you the most, because then you sit there and you listen and there's a whole new world around you, and people having conversations that you don't agree with or confronting people in ways you don't.
Okay, is that just pubs or is it other buildings and other
there aren't many other buildings where there's still such a split in society. That's a real thing where pubs and drinking establishments are still segregated, not by colour or race or gender, but by the way you look at the world. And if you can mix in that, then you can start to think differently. Okay. It's kind of a metaphor, I guess.
Okay. So the pub could be the start of embracing these people.
I think that's a really good idea, because going back to the thing you were saying about masks before, the problem with interacting online is that little barrier means you can say things without looking someone in the eye. The difference between being able to actually literally see someone's reaction to what you're saying, it makes a difference to how you say it. And I think, and also how it gets interpreted. You're absolutely right. It is. It's all about, we need to go to the pub, everyone.
Okay. Well, we will be going to the pub later on. There's still a couple of sessions of Talkaoke to do, plus all the other things going on in this amazing and wondrous Hackstock. It's an amazing collection and collaboration of all different kinds of artists working loosely in the field of virtual reality. So please do go and explore. Let's have a round of applause for everyone around the table. Once again, thank Rick for pointing the camera in our faces and turning this into an internet experience, which he's going to do later on. Thank you.